Peace, 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 power, and reparations. How y'all doing? This your brother MD checking in with volume 2, man. OES series entitled Special Field Order 15 and the Freedmen's Bureau. It's really supposed to have been done yesterday, but you know, life and all that stuff happened. So in any event, we're gonna try to get into it today. It shouldn't be too long, but I'm gonna make sure it's strong. And I will drop the link later on when I finish the presentation. If anybody want to give feedback or want to come with any additional information that I may have not put in the presentation, which is a lot. So Black Sun, we got Black Sun in the house. You know what I mean? He gonna be co-hosting with me. And again, after the presentation, we'll come with some other things that may correlate or may be in commonality with the topic at hand. Peace, Black Sun. What's up? Your mic muted, by the way, if you ain't know.
Oh shit, sorry about that. Yeah, I thought okay. Yeah, man. What's going on? What's going on, man? I'm excited, man. I'm excited. This is what, nation building's all about, man. And like I said, this reminds me, and that's why I keep, man, I don't know how many times, and I hate to repeat myself, MD. I always say got the Constitution, you gotta be better than the Constitution. And this is the first time ever I've seen on YouTube somebody put a documentation together, and it's not a one-time process, it's an ongoing process, bro. And
No doubt.
yeah, I'm excited. That's all I need to say. I'm excited.
No doubt, no doubt. Yeah, most definitely, man. When we talk about nation building and we talk about what's going to sustain us in terms of freedom in the country, I mean, this is the type of stuff you got to think about, like why stuff happened, why they did, and how you going to rectify it. You know what I mean? So it's important. It's important. So yeah, shouts out to everybody that's eventually gonna be in the chat and all the people that gonna see the video later. So without further ado, man, I'm gonna get into it. And if any point in time, Black Son, if you got a question about anything or you want more clarity on something, like feel free. Like, it's all free going. It ain't gotta be straight through.
Okay, no problem, no problem.
All right, I already got it pulled up. Let me present it like this. I'm gonna blank us out. I'm gonna do it like this. All right. Operation Exodus South, Volume 2, Special Field Order 15, and the Freedmen's Bureau. Right? So what we're talking about here, we're talking about us and the inception of us being citizens in this country. What we're gonna talk about is how we got up to the point to where we're at now. And eventually, as the series go on, we'll document all of that, and then we'll try to give up solutions on how we can bring all this stuff forth into fruition and how it's going to benefit us as a people. So again, Volume 2, Special Field Order 15, and the Freedmen's Bureau, right? So what would happen, and let me know that you can see all this stuff and everything look good on your end, Black Sun. If anything look crazy, just let me know.
Okay. No, I mean, it looks good on my end.
All right, cool. So what would happen if the visualization of land ownership and true independence for Black Americans or freedmen would have come into existence after Reconstruction? Right? So this presentation is going to give us a look at what transpired in the event of the end of the Civil War, our potential of wealth during Reconstruction through land that was allocated to us, and the events that transpired that led to the lack of wealth for generations of Black Americans. So we're going to be discussing how everything came about from the end of the Civil War through Reconstruction, inevitably what happened after Reconstruction, and how it led to us as a people, right? What is Special Field Order number 15? On January 16, 1865, during the Civil War, which was 1861 through 65, Union General William Tecumseh Sherman issued his Special Field Order number 15, which confiscated as Union property a strip of coastline stretching from Charleston, South Carolina, to the St. Johns River in Florida, including Georgia's Sea Islands and the mainland 30 miles in from the coast. So basically what he's saying, from Charleston, South Carolina, all the way down past Jacksonville, where the St. Johns River's at, south of Jacksonville. All that land was allocated to those free blacks that was in that territory, plus 30 miles in from the coast. So all that land, and I'll show you a map here earlier on how that looked like. The order redistributed the roughly 400,000 acres of land to newly freed blacks in 40-acre segments. Sherman's order came on the heels of his successful march to the sea from Atlanta to Savannah. So everybody knows the story, the Civil War story. Sherman took his troops down from Chattanooga, and he marched all the way down to Atlanta, rummaging, pillaging, burning up everything. Burnt up Atlanta, then from Atlanta went down to the sea. The march to the sea is what they call it. And just prior to his march northward into South Carolina, once he left Savannah, he went up through South Carolina and will make his way back to regroup with other Union leaders. And then, of course, you had the Battle of Appomattox, which was ultimately the end of the Civil War. Radical Republicans in the U.S. Congress like Charles Sumner and Thaddeus Stevens, two of the baddest white men to ever set forth, and they knew what freedom was, by the way, for some time had pushed for land distribution in order to break the back of Southern slaveholders' power. Feeling pressure from within his own party, United States President Abraham Lincoln sent his Secretary of War, Edwin M. Stanton, to Savannah in order to facilitate a conversation with Sherman over what to do with Southern planters' land. This comes from Barton Meyer's article, Special Field Order 15 in the New Georgia Encyclopedia. So basically what happened was during the march from Atlanta to Savannah, it was all these black people basically followed Sherman and his troops from Atlanta to Savannah. Sherman got kind of, he not upset, but he got kind of complicit on what he was willing to do for these emancipated people that, he was basically going through the line of slavery, basically. So Sherman met with a lot of the local leaders down in Savannah, along with some of the people that followed Sherman down to Savannah, and met to basically talk about what they were going to do with the land of the former planters and how they were going to redistribute that. It eventually got into the whole of Abraham Lincoln, and Abraham Lincoln actually constituted, which was to become Field Order 15 without Sherman even knowing it. So whatever you would have called it, Abraham Lincoln was going to certify it in the law, despite. So he had done already certified. He basically gave Sherman like a blank check, per se. Like, here, my name's signed on whatever you want to call it, however you want to do it, from wartime executive order. So a special field order, you can look at it essentially as an executive order that's really not into congressional consideration, because it's wartime. It's field order because it's going through the wartime law. So that's how you look at a field order, and then that can be done at any point in time during wartime through the Constitution. So we'll go to the next one. The immediate effect of Sherman's order provided for the settlement of roughly 40,000 Black Americans. Remember, we're just talking about the people in the vicinity of where this was constituted, where Special Field Order 15 was constituted. Both refugees and locals who had been under Union Army administration in the sea lines since 1861. Now I got to stop right there. So a lot of the argument that I get from a lot of people when I present this information, they're like, what is a refugee? Essentially, a refugee is this. A refugee is not a freedman. They're two different people. So the people that's emancipated, that got emancipated from slavery, is not a refugee. A refugee would be considered, at this time, another person of which we'll just say white people for this term, that was either sympathized with the Union Army or was displaced under Confederate rule. That's a refugee. So not only was part of the Freedmen's Bureau, which we'll talk about later, part of the Freedmen's Bureau was specifically for us. It was also dealing with these displaced white people that were going against the Confederacy, for lack of a better term. This lifted the burden of supporting the freed people from Sherman's army as it turned north into South Carolina. But the order was a short-lived promise for blacks. Despite the objections of General Oliver O. Howard. Oliver O. Howard was a Union general that eventually became, and he'll talk about it here, the Freedmen's Bureau chief, which was named Howard University because of him. He, associated with a lot of freedmen schools around D.C. and things of that nature. So despite the objections of General Oliver O. Howard, the Freedmen's Bureau chief, U.S. President Andrew Johnson overturned Sherman's directive in the fall of 1865 after the war had ended and returned most of the land along the South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida coast to the planters who had arisen. So essentially, after the execution of Abraham Lincoln, one Vice President Andrew Johnson got sworn in as president, he basically immediately overturned Special Field Order 15, and then eventually, as we all know, pulled out of the Reconstruction Plan for the South later on, a little over a decade later. So he gave all the land back from Special Field Order 15 back to the former plantation owner. Right here, we got a map of Special Field Order 15, which they dubbed the Sherman Reservation. So if we looking at, and I know y'all can't read it, and it's cool. So if we look up here, right here is around Charleston, South Carolina, and you got all the South Carolina Sea Islands here. So in the red, it will be from the coastline all the way to the red, which would be, it's actually more than 30 miles in, but essentially, yeah, around 30 miles in. So if you look up at the top, that's Charleston. Then you got Charleston County and Charleston right there in the gap is Charleston, South Carolina. And then you go on down a little bit ways. A little bit above the middle will be like around your Savannah, Chatham County area, which are the Tybee Islands. And then you go a little bit farther down south, which is St. Simon and Cumberland Islands, Brunswick, Georgia, Glenn County. Then you're going down to where the Florida line is. That will be Duval County and Jacksonville. And then on down, you'll go past essentially west of like Gainesville, Florida, and Ocala, Florida, will be all of that. So just imagine. Basically, it'd be black rule from Charleston, South Carolina, the whole city. Charleston will be black rule. And I'm just naming the major cities. So Charleston, South Carolina, then Savannah, Georgia, then Brunswick, Georgia, Jacksonville, basically the whole of Jacksonville, and the whole of, like I said, West Gainesville, Ocala, that little area. So just imagine all of that had Special Field Order 15 would have been put to fruition federally after Abraham Lincoln was executed. All this land will be black control, politically and economically. You know what I mean? So that's just something that you can go to sleep on and, just imagine what could have been in terms of that happening. So had this land been allocated to the freedmen in that area, there is no doubt that the political and economic freedom that we so eagerly want would have been a reality today for many Black Americans through wealth obtained from the labors of agricultural land. But wait, Negro, that was for only a set group of freedmen. What about the rest of the 4 million of us? At the time, it was estimated to be around 4 million emancipated. So hold on, Negro. He wasn't talking about everybody. So what about everybody else, right? That's a common question. So the Freedmen's Bureau Act. On March 3rd, 1865, Congress passed an act to establish a bureau for the relief of freedmen and refugees. That's the official name of the act itself. The Freedmen's Bureau Act is just a short-term title or short version title. So enact to establish a bureau for the relief of freedmen and refugees to provide food, shelter, clothing, medical services, and land to displaced Southerners, including newly freed African Americans. The Freedmen's Bureau was to operate during the present War of Rebellion and for 1 year thereafter. So the original Freedmen's Bureau Act was supposed to be wartime and a year after, basically, this Appomattox Compromise, and also establish schools, supervise contracts between freedmen and employers, meaning the government was going to help with wage disputes or wage contracts, things of that nature, and manage confiscated or abandoned lands, meaning it was basically how they was going to reallocate what they deemed abandoned or confiscated through the Civil War. The battle to establish the Freedmen's Bureau and then to extend the legislation 1 year later was a major factor in the struggle between President Andrew Johnson and the radical Republicans in Congress over Reconstruction and the role of the federal government in integrating 4 million newly anticipated African Americans to the political life of the nation. So the Freedmen's Bureau was essentially getting us antiquated with political life, as well as giving us land through grants of the federal government in order to establish ourselves in the country. That was the whole purpose. All right. Now, this is going to be long. I'm going to read this. Thaddeus Stevens to Congress in 1867. Since the surrender of the armies of the Confederate States of America, a little has been done toward establishing this government upon the true principles of liberty and justice. And but a little, if we stop here, we have broken the material shackles of 4 million slaves. We have unchained them from the state so as to allow them locomotion, provided they do not walk in paths which are trod by white men. We have allocated them the unwanted privilege of attending church, if they could do so without offending the sight of their former masters. We have even given them that highest and most agreeable evidence of liberty as defined by the great plebeian, the right to work. But in what have we enlarged their liberty of thought? In what have we taught them the science and granted them the privilege of self-government? I'm going to read that again. In what have we taught them the science and granted them the privilege of self-government?
Plebiscite.
We have imposed. Say what now?
That's a plebiscite. They just described the plebiscite.
There it is. And again, this is Thaddeus Stevens, Congressman Thaddeus Stevens, in the Congress debate in 1867 to give context. Where am I? Okay. We have imposed upon them the privilege of fighting our battles, of dying in defense of freedom, and of bearing their equal portion of taxes. But where have we given them the privilege of ever participating in the formation of the laws for the government of their native land?
Oh, shit.
By what civil weapon have we enabled them to defend themselves against oppression and injustice? Call you this liberty? Call you this a free republic where 4 millions are subjects but not citizens? Then Persia, with her king and satraps, was free. Then Turkey is free. Their subjects had liberty of motion and of labor, but the laws were made without and against their will. But I must declare that, in my judgment, they were as really free governments as ours is today. I know they had fewer rulers and more subjects, but those rulers were no more despotic than ours. And their subjects had just as large privileges in governing the country as ours have. Think not I would slander my native land. I would reform it. 20 years ago, I denounced it as despotism. Then, 20 million white men and chained 4 million black men. I pronounce it no nearer to a true republic now when 20 million or 25 million of a privileged class exclude 5 million from all participation in the rights of government. So, what the great Thaddeus Stevens saw after the Civil War and during Reconstruction is that these black folks are truly not citizens until they have the right to self-govern themselves. Until they do that, self-governance does not mean that somebody look like me, thinks like me, and is in a high mind with me is making up the rules. That's not self-government. Self-government is the weapon of the pen, the weapon of the pole. That's self-government. And Thaddeus Stevens understood that. So in their quest for the 14th Amendment, these debates were happening in Congress. Alongside Thaddeus Stevens is the great Charles Sumner and other people that were fighting the fight of equal rights for us on our behalf as freedmen. There you go, right there. Thaddeus Stevens and Charles Sumner. Thaddeus Stevens, the congressman out of Pennsylvania, and Charles Sumner, the congressman out of Massachusetts. Give me 1 second, Blake. Son.
Oh, okay, no problem, no problem. Yeah, man. Shout out. There we go. Thaddeus Stevens and Charles Sumner. Oh boy. Boy. Man, I want to thank. Oh shit. Hello, can y'all hear me?
Yeah. I can hear you.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
I just unmuted.
okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
no
no
doubt.
problem.
Yeah, my
Okay,
bad. That was my
okay.
son. Yeah, I had to
Oh, you
say something to my son real quick. Yeah, two
okay?
of the
You
baddest
okay?
white men to ever set forth upon Capitol Hill because they fought for us. You know what I'm saying? So is Thaddeus Stevens and Charles Sumner the Wazungu? I had to put that in there because they sold fight until they dying breath was for the advocacy and equality of black folk. Just putting that out there. General Sherman and Special Field, I spelled that wrong. Special Field Order number 15 was only the preamble for the Freedmen's Bureau and the confiscation of millions of acres of land from the planters in the South. Meaning, the original Special Field Order 15 was the thought. The Freedmen's Bureau was the formation of the thought. So when people try to make the argument that Special Field Order 15 was only for a specific group of Negroes, in reality, yeah, kind of, sort of, yeah, because it was a war directive. But the Freedmen's Bureau was the initializing of it from a federal level, if that makes any sense. So the idea was created to create a self-sustainable, self-governing land where freedmen were in control of their own destiny. The Freedmen's Bureau. Congress established the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands. Ultimately, that became the Freedmen's Bureau Act 1 and Act 2. So the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands in 1865 to assist in the reconstruction of the South and to aid formerly enslaved individuals' transition to freedom and citizenship. Administered by the War Department, the Bureau followed the department's war-inspired record-keeping system. These handwritten records included letters, labor contracts, list of food rations issued, indentures of apprenticeship, marriage and hospital registers, and census lists. They provide a unique view into the lives of newly freed individuals and the social conditions of the South after the war. The Bureau was responsible for providing assistance to 4 million formerly enslaved individuals and hundreds of thousands of impoverished Southern whites. The Bureau provided food, clothing, medical care, and legal representation, promoted education, helped legalize marriages, and assisted African American soldiers and sailors in securing back pay, enlistment bounties, and pensions. In addition, the Bureau promoted a system of labor contracts to replace the slavery system and tried to settle freedmen and women on abandoned or confiscated land. The Bureau was also responsible for protecting freedmen and women from intimidation and assaults by Southern whites. The Bureau set up offices in major cities in 15 southern and border states and the District of Columbia. Underfunded by Congress and opposed by President Andrew Johnson, the Bureau only operated between 1865 and 1872. This comes from the Smithsonian Institute, National Museum of African American History and Culture. So, the reason behind the Freedmen's Bureau in totality was not just the land ownership and the land grants. It was also provided for in terms of schooling and education. A lot of your HBCUs today were founded upon being freedmen schools. We just got finished talking about General Howard and the onset of Howard Freeman School, which eventually became Howard University. Freedmen education, basically putting everybody on the books, whether it was marriage licenses, especially census listing, because before the Civil War, you had two special census lists. You had the regular census list, which only white folks was on. Then you had the slave registrar. And if anybody's ever seen the slave registrars, when I was doing my ancestry, if anybody's seen the slave registrar, there ain't no names listed. It's the name of the slave master and how many slaves you got, basically, men and women. And you'll see a B. You'll see sometimes you'll see a B there. It'll be black. Sometimes you see an N there, which means Negro. Or sometimes you see an M there, which means mulatto. So we wasn't listed on any type of census list, just in terms of a number, before the 1860s. So it was basically to put us on the books, grant us the allocation of land, as well as what they mentioned here, land contracts. So land contracts were essentially after you are granted this allocation of land, and whatever amenities you'll need, equipment that you'll need to till the land, the government through the Freedmen's Bureau will give a contract based on your crop. So if we talk about the coast dealt with a lot of rice at that time. It wasn't necessarily cotton; it was rice on the coast. So on the coast, if you had a rice crop, to assist in the Freedmen's Bureau, the government basically buy your crop. You know what I mean? Until we're starting to formulate some type of rapport with any import of whatever industry that you got at the time. So that's what they mean by that. Again, it says it again here in the Freedmen's Bureau Act 1 and Act 2. They're talking about impoverished Southern whites. It wasn't meant for if you were just a poor white person that you will also be able to benefit from Freedmen's Bureau. No, you had to be registered as a refugee. So, like I said, again, a refugee was somebody that basically ran away from their southern land because of the Civil War, or they were a Union sympathizer. A lot of the refugees that were listed, if we're talking about the Freedmen's Bank, a lot of the refugees that were listed under the Freedmen's Bank were actually ancestors of people that were either lynched or killed through intimidation of the Confederate Army. So they listed those people as refugees because they didn't agree with the Confederacy. They either abandoned their land, or as a result, they were killed in some form or fashion by the Confederacy because of their viewpoint. So that's where the refugees come into play. Okay, what do experts say about the potential wealth of Black Americans? According to Dr. Sandra Darity and Kirsten Mullen, research in From Here to Equality on pages 433 and 434, if a family of four was to receive 40 acres of land, not taking into account any allocated amenities or equipment, meaning not taking into account any of the stuff that they need to till the land or to maintain the land. In 1865, that land was at a value of $400,000. So, with all the if you go through the bureau records, not just the traditional 40 acres and a mule from the coast. If you go through all the Freedmen's Bureau allocated land that was to be given to, and we'll just say family of four, because that's how they gonna minimalize it. We're talking about a total value of $400 million at the time in 1865, based on the 4 million emancipated, and the price of an acre of land being around $10 at the time. So an acre of land was $10 in 1865. The present day value of that same land in total, with a compound interest of 4%, 5%, and 6% interest, would be $168 billion, $733.2 billion, and $3.1 trillion respectively. That's with your interest added on. This value would have been even greater if legislation had sought out to go through with the Southern Homestead Act of 1866. Southern Homestead Act was of 1866. That was an extension of the Freedmen's Bureau Act. So Charles Sumner, Oliver Howard, and Thaddeus Stevens came up with the Southern Homestead Act of 1866. That was to be the extension of the Freedmen's Bureau, because the Freedmen's Bureau was only supposed to last for a year. And, the radical Republicans said, nah, that's not going to work. Like, we're talking about a lot of people to get, like get straight as far as like what we need to do to make the South whole. So they enlisted and wrote the Southern Homestead Act of 1866. But that was eventually vetoed. It passed, but it eventually got vetoed with, again, the racist cracker Andrew Johnson. So the Homestead Act of 1866, which would have gotten out 80 acres, the Southern Homestead Act were giving out 80 acres of land to families and only charging $5. So $5 will get you 80 acres of land. And the states were Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi, and I want to say Tennessee, but I can look that up later. It wasn't all states because they were dealing with a lot of abandoned land and people going to the frontier. So they needed to, and all this was arable land. So they needed some way to basically get all that land situated. And the Freedmen's Bureau Act 1 and Act 2 was an extension. Then the Southern Homestead Act became an extension. Political power during Reconstruction. During Reconstruction, freedmen held over 1,000 political positions, including 14 Congress seats and 2 Senate seats, all to better the quality of the liberties of not only all to better the quality of the liberties that not only benefit the freedmen, but all Americans. And again, you have to remember, in the South at the time during Reconstruction, basically in all southern states, with an exception of maybe Virginia and Tennessee, maybe. I have to look at the numbers. It was majority black. Like, it was basically a clean sweep, you know what I mean? And what ended up happening was the radical Republicans and the populists formed a coalition and made sure that it was representation in said states with black politicians. You know what I mean? Shout out to my man, Congressman Blanche Bruce out of Mississippi. That's the person on the screen. The Fusion Party in black politics. During Reconstruction, many radical Republicans and populists band together with black leaders to form the Fusionist Party. It was an attempt to alleviate the pressure of a mostly Democratic Southern rule and create a new political ideology that will help freedmen become politically literate. The Fusionists understood that ultimately, based on the majority of the Southern population being black, a political commonality had to be met in order for the South to truly become whole with the Union. So the whole purpose of the Fusionist Party was to ban and have a coalition between black political leaders in the South, Populist Party at the time. Well, I don't think it's a Populist Party anymore, but the Populist Party, which was essentially the radical Republicans, and the Republican Party. They all came together and was like, hey, like, we gonna have to coexist. Like, the Democrats don't want any of us here. So, you know what I mean? What can we do to become a political powerhouse in the South and make sure that all our demands are met from a political standpoint, and make sure that we have a greater representation in the South. With the help of the fusionists, blacks were able to construct and maintain cities that were founded in part to policy that benefited black Americans as well as their white counterparts. One of the most talked about cities being Wilmington, North Carolina. I say this all the time. Wilmington, North Carolina was essentially the stronghold of the fusionist party of the South all the way up until the 1890s, when they essentially did a coup in the city, and the Wilmington riot essentially sparked the democratic movement in the South, all the way up until civil rights. All the way up until civil rights, the South was democratic. So we talk about from we talking about antebellum days to Reconstruction, when it flipped. Then went back in the 1890s to Democrat through means of intimidation and so on and so forth, all the way up until the mid to late 1960s. So, but later on, we'll talk about how it flipped, why it flipped, and why these same people that were Democrats in earlier years are now Republicans. So my next presentation will be Operation Exodus South, Volume 3, The Black Codes and the Lost Cause. We'll be talking about what happened after Reconstruction, how the Democrats were able to gain control of the South again through the Lost Cause and create black codes and eventually Jim Crow. So we'll be talking about all that in Volume 3. But yeah, that's my presentation, man. Black Son, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, man. Hey, woo, boy, that's what I said. It's gonna, yeah, this right here is fire, man. Shout out to Trevor and Gynocracy GTO, man. Yeah, and I can't wait. So you're gonna do this every
my
Saturday
goal
or
is do it
Sunday?
my goal is do it every weekend.
Okay. Well, I know you're gonna notify us and give us a notification ahead of time, because yeah, man, these are, yeah, this, I mean, man, nice presentation, brother. Nice presentation.
Yeah,
You
no
know.
doubt. So ultimately, in synopsis, what we're talking about here, we're talking about something that was allocated to our ancestors, and we were
That's
never
right.
given it.
Yeah, a lot of
Based
people
off of
don't.
that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
No, go ahead.
No, a lot of people don't know that about the public site. Yeah, that they don't. A lot of, man, this is like, out of all these years, this is the first time I've heard this on YouTube, man. But yeah, I learned this uh through my younger years, of course, man. And now I'm just like revisit. I'm like, damn, man, ain't nobody touched on this, man. But everybody want to be on this, I don't know, separation kick. And when it, man, yeah, this is heavy.
So yeah, Trevor. Yeah, I saw your question. So yeah, I have traced my lineage. The farthest that I can go back is 1855. The reason being is, so it would have been. Let me see. I gotta count it now. Here, let me see. So it'll be my great grandfather times 3. So my great grandfather was born into slavery. On his death certificate, it's got all his information there. He was born in 1855. So that would have made him 10 years old when slavery ended. And on your death certificate, they ask you your mother's name, and he didn't know none of that. You know what I'm saying? Well, I ain't gonna necessarily say he didn't know it. I'm gonna say his wife didn't know it. You know what I'm saying? He probably he probably never told her. So it said don't know on all that stuff. And then it said father said don't know a slave. He died in I have to, matter of fact, that'll be something I'll do on the next video. Because I got it all. I'll put it in the presentation. And but yeah, essentially that's how you trace back your lineage and know if you even qualify for any of this stuff. Usually you can do it through that way. A lot of people use the 1870 census as like a starting point. But I couldn't find none of my people on the 1870 census. Probably because, hell, they were too busy trying to figure out where the hell they was going to go. You know what I mean? So they try to say the 1870 census is a standard. To me, it's not. I think really you could just go back. The farthest person you can go back, if you can find a death certificate, that'll pretty much let you know, like if you come from institution of slavery or not. You know what I mean? Like I said, my great grandfather times 3, he ain't know none of that shit. All he knew was he was a slave, mama was a slave, daddy was a slave. That's all he pretty much knew. You know what I mean? So that'll pretty much give you an indication on like what's what. But I mean, like flat out, if you Black American and you don't come from immigrant stock, you pretty much ancestor of a slave. You know what I mean? And you ain't got to get too intricate with the shit. You know what I mean? Like it is what it is. We know where we come from. You know, we ain't just pop out of nowhere. That's why I don't try to use the indigenous role play. I don't and you can't prove it. You know what I'm saying? If you saying, one of the arguments is you can't prove that your ancestry covered slavery. Well, you can't prove that you was out here shucking arrows and smoking on peace and pipe either. You know what I'm saying? I bet you when push come to shove, when it comes to that money, your ass gonna prove that you was a slave. You know what I mean? So that that's a false argument for a lot of people. But yeah, either in any event, it's still important to do your lineage. Just for the sake of family history. You know what I'm saying? Like I was the first person in my family to even think about what our lineage was. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, it's important. But in any event, again, like I was saying before, so Special Field Order 15, as well as the Freedmen's Bureau Act 1 and Act 2, it shows you what was supposed to happen, what could have been, and what did happen, and what should have been. You know what I mean? And you can base the reparations argument off of that because the Federal Bureau is the footprint of reparation. So if the federal government telling me that we were supposed to get something and we didn't get it, then what is it after that? It's a claim. You know what I'm saying? So when people say, reparations is a handout, no, it's not a handout. I mean, essentially, it's your birthright. You know what I mean? If you really want to get down to it. So, it's just something that's just been forgotten in history. But we're in a generation now where the reparations movement is moving like full steam ahead, and it's either you get the hell out of the way or you're gonna get ran over. You know what I mean? So that's where we at now. That's why it's important for us to have these type of presentations so we can know where we come from and what we need to do to get up out of it. You about to say something, Black Son?
Oh no. I'm still listening, bro. I'm taking it all in.
So yeah, that's where we at with it. I'm gonna get ready to drop this link here if anybody want to come and join the convo. And if anybody got any questions on anything. Boom, that is right there. So yeah, if anybody got any questions or want to make a comment about anything that was in the presentation, feel free. And but other than that, I'm gonna be answering these questions in these comments in the chat. Shouts out to Vancat. What's up, Vancat? He says, MD, have you heard about Dilbert comic strip cartoonist? Scott Adams urged white people to get the hell away from black people. He labeled black people a hate group. Yes, I did. yeah, I saw it.
Oh boy.
Yeah, man. I'm telling you, man, bro, we at a critical time right now because a lot of these white people, they showing their colors, quote unquote. They showing their colors. They see how society has changed to their detriment in a way, because society is getting away from color barrier and white men being the standard. So they afraid, you know what I'm saying? They paranoid in a way. But the ultimate scapegoat is us as black folk. You know what I'm saying? When it's really not us that is making these moves politically. You know what I'm saying? We may be the light bearers for them. We may be the gatekeepers, like I say, for them, but we ain't the ones that's making these moves. You know what I mean? So you might jump off a bridge if we was really to get down politically, and on one accord to get these policies done, because we're not right now. The white society, they're scared of the change yet to come when it comes to policy that's going to be in defense of just them. That's why you deal with like identity politics, and we're going to be discussing that in the next chapter when it comes to black codes. The black codes were based off of identity politics. You know what I mean? The defense of a lot of white men in terms of like how society's going now is because of identity politics. And identity politics is unconstitutional because you don't make policies based off race. You can make policies based off status. That's what the Freedmen's Bureau was for. You know what I'm saying? But ain't no policies getting done based off nobody's race. But when you have identity politics and you got a subset of people that believe in identity politics, that's when you start getting the scare of white flight. That's when you start getting the scare of the rise of a black messiah. That's when you get all this type of stuff. You know what I mean? So I saw that cracker talking about being afraid of black folk and getting the hell away from black folk. You wasn't around no black folk to begin with. So what are we talking about here? Dilbert. Crazy as hell. But yeah, I did see that though. I did see that. Let me see what Trevor talking about. That's very interesting what an acre of land is now due to inflation. Black America. Hell yeah, we will be in a good, we will be in a good position now. And that's what I'm saying. And a lot of those numbers are skewed because even with the added interest of today's value with 4 and 5 and 6%, that's still not enough to me, because you still have to total in redlining. We ain't even got that far yet. But just giving you an example, you got to factor in redlining. You got to factor in eminent domain. You got to factor in the Great Migration and the assets that were lost then. It's a lot of stuff you got to factor in. To me, that number I think should be triple. And I'm talking, and that's with the 6% interest rate. You know what I mean? Because we just at that number, we just talking about the land that we were supposed to get. Period. Like we're not even talking about the equipment being used. We're not talking about the rate of rent. We're not talking about any of that. We're just talking about the land value on its own. Is that number? I think that number was what, 3.1 trillion with 6% interest. Bro, there's so much other stuff that you can add to it based off of what you would view white supremacy. I don't like to use that term, white supremacy, but we just gonna use it for layman's terms, based off of all the other stuff politically that forced us out of economic positions. You know what I mean? So Let's see. Yeah. But yeah, what you got anything on that, Black Son? You got anything you want to add?
No, I mean, no, I'm again, I'm taking notes actually. I'm taking notes because, yeah, and I feel like I'm bringing brushed up on information that, yeah, I got to take notes.
Right, no doubt, no doubt. So yeah, again, so looking forward to volume 3 with Black Codes and Lost Cause. We're gonna dig into Lost Cause. We're gonna try to get an understanding of the ideology of Lost Cause, what it means, how it helped basically get rid of Reconstruction. Because had it not been, in my personal opinion, had it not been for the Lost Cause doctrine, Reconstruction would have went the way it was supposed to go. But when we're talking about the Lost Cause doctrine, we're talking about people that essentially were enemies of the state, that were able to make political moves being enemies of the state. How you get to do that, I don't know. I guess simply because this is the United States of America. And that's what a freedom looked like for a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? How the Lost Cause doctrine was able to bring Republicans and Democrats to the table in order to come up with a compromise on how to end Reconstruction, and how it was that period probably is the most devastating thing that ever happened to Black folk. More devastating than slavery itself. More devastating than the era following up to civil rights. The Lost Cause doctrine and the New Southern Compromise was the single worst thing that ever happened to Black folk. Period. And I'm gonna show that in the next video. And I'm gonna show you about it. I mean, y'all essentially know about all of this stuff. Y'all know about convict leasing. Y'all know about redlining and the era that followed up to Jim Crow. Y'all know about all this stuff. But we're gonna dig down in the hole and we're gonna see like how all this stuff came about. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, this is what I'm here for. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to provide this information to the people. And eventually you'll have a concept of what a political reality looks like for you as a people. I'm interested to see what others that deal with Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism have to say about how certain people perceive self-governance when it comes to, because like I said, that's why I put that in there for a reason. Because Thaddeus Stevens ain't Black. You know what I mean? Charles Sumner ain't Black.
Facts.
But they understood that the only way that this was going to work, these people have to have the sense of self-governance, the sense of self-sustainability. Other than that, like that again, that's how you formulate a doctrine of lost cause. You know what I'm saying? And they was doing this prior to Appomattox and the ending of slavery. You know what I'm saying? They were talking about this stuff like far before. So and that can be a video all in itself. You know what I mean? With the white abolitionists and your radical republicanism, your fusionist party. You know what I'm saying? Your John Brown. I could do a video just on that. Like, and that was before the Civil War started. You know what I'm saying? We talk about ideas and views from the 1850s, way before the Civil War, way before secession. So yeah, it's people that had these views. Again, when you got an industry like slavery being involved, ain't nobody trying to let that go. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nobody trying to let that go at all. That's like me being a chicken farmer. And I'm glad I said, have you ever seen the movie Chicken Run? Speaking of Dilbert, because they kind of remind me of Dilbert, but that's a whole nother. Have you ever seen that movie Chicken Run, Black Son?
Chicken, I never seen it.
It's like a claymation type movie.
Okay.
Where like the chickens, they trying to get the hell off the chicken coop.
Right.
and they build like an airplane.
Oh
trying to
shit.
get up. Yeah, they're trying to get up. It's the same type of situation. When you have a group of people that are promised a certain a certain set of policies, didn't get the policies, chances are those people are going to be distrusted within the political system. I don't disagree with that.
Right.
But when you understand where your political views come from, when you understand where your political rights derive from, then you can have a conception of what's to be coming in the future. A lot of those people didn't know like political literacy. A lot of it was actually Talented 10 before it was Talented 10. Like I mentioned, the brother Blanche Bruce, the congressman from Mississippi. The brother was smart. He didn't come from like he was a slave, yes, but he didn't come from your typical field. Like and not to say he was no house nigga, because I ain't saying that, but he was in a way self-educated, but in a lot of ways he benefited off of the plantation in which he grew. Because if I remember and that's another story I could do. If I remember right, he came from I'm trying to say the right word without saying no dumb shit. So in that little area where he was from in Mississippi and Louisiana, they had like the mulattoes like that was separate.
Right.
Blanche Bruce, he comes from that stock, but I don't think he was like I think he may have been a quadroon, or was he a mulatto? Or was his other parent? I think his other parent was black. So what do you call when you got a mulatto parent and then a black parent? What's that called?
That's
A triune?
Yeah.
I think it's triune. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think.
But either way, he he was black, no doubt. But he was chosen through the inception of the bourgeoisie to become like this leader of the people. Though he did great things in the Congress, I'm not saying he didn't. Though he did great things, I could see where a lot of people get disassociated with the whole black bourgeoisie, that whole class of black folk. But Negroes wasn't thinking like that back then. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Negroes was thinking, hey, look, like I ain't no slave no more. Like, what do I need to do to get involved? You know what I'm saying? So and it was we had a lot of other political leaders that wasn't that. So we got to take that into consideration too. Who controls the land that was supposed to be given for reparations? Why don't individual whites control more land? Well, so what President Johnson did, he gave that land back to those plantation owners. So you can actually trace a lot of this farmland today, like directly to slavery. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, those are individual white families that are benefiting off of labors originally through the enslavement of black folk. You know what I mean? A lot of these crop owners now, a lot of these white farmers, they contracted now through bigger companies. You know what I mean? Like here in Georgia, if you go like to middle Georgia or some of South Central Georgia, a lot of these cotton fields and stuff, they contracted through like Fruit of the Loom and Haynes and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? So they getting contract work just from making crop. The same goes with shit. I'm trying to think of another crop. The same like any of these like these Midwestern farms that got the corn. Like I think the biggest corn industry is called the Cab. Something it's in Illinois, but I pass by them all the time when I used to drive up there. A lot of these people that got all these acres of land that were either given back to them through President Johnson, or if we're dealing with the Midwest, outright given to them for pennies on the dollar through the Homestead Act. they essentially got residual income and didn't have to put no capital behind it. You know what I'm saying? It's free money at the end of the day. If I give you land, I give you the equipment to till the land, I give you the crop to make the crop with, and then you can go back and sell it to private industry. That's all free money. It's all free money. That's like me just giving you a key of cocaine, like, here, this is yours. You got it. You go sell in front of you, I get it. It's all free money. You know what I'm saying?
Thanks.
So through the years of work, am I sounding right? You say I got low. Do I sound good?
No, you sound good now. Yeah. It cut out for just like a
Okay.
second, but no, you good. Yeah.
Okay. So through the years of our labor through slavery, I think we should at least been given the land in order to do it ourselves. You know what I'm saying? We weren't asking y'all to just give us, and we were just asking for the land. And y'all was willing to give it to us. How do I know that? Because y'all made the Freedmen's Bureau. You know what I'm saying? Let me see. Why do you think more white people aren't rich in land? I mean, a lot of that got to do now with, basically areas are becoming more condensed. You know what I'm saying? Trevor, you got, man, I don't know how much you travel, man. Bruh, you got to get out, man. Go up to Central Florida, go up to North Florida, and then let me know if you still got that same visualization of white folk. They got acres upon acres upon acres of land. So with me, because of what I've seen, I don't have that concept of white people having more land. Because I see white folk with land all the time. Living in a city is not, you ain't gonna be able to dictate that off just what you see in the city. You know what I'm saying? Like the cities in comparison to everywhere else is minuscule. Like go out to some of these country areas where they got land as far as the eye can see. You know what I'm saying? Nothing but crops growing. And they sitting in the house or on the porch drinking lemonade. You know what I'm saying? So I see what you're saying. But a lot of these people, because of where they live, are more frugal than others. You know what I'm saying? Where they live, they may not have the amenities, a lot of the stuff like how we have. You go to some of these places, man, I'm pretty sure their internet ain't all that great. You know what I'm saying? But they got the land. So it's two ways you can look at it. You know what I'm saying? It's definitely two ways you can look at it. All you gotta do is jump on the highway, man, and you'll see. Like that land, and that be one family. That don't be, you know what I'm saying? Like some state shit or some, that'd be one family with all that land. Cows roaming around, you know what I'm saying? So it all depends on your viewpoint on how you view being rich. I've been to every state on the East Coast and a good portion of the Midwest. I guess what I'm saying is the land wasn't given to Black Americans, so someone should have it. Well, yeah, they got it. You know what I'm saying? They most definitely got it. Like I said, when you talk about, so let's just break it down. The Midwest, a lot of that land was considered at a time that was like frontier land. Like, they had to push the Indians out first and foremost. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Right. And then a lot of those people weren't willing to go that far west. Like the frontier, you thought it was scared being a colonist on the East Coast, going deeper into the land. A lot of the people weren't willing to do that. So what ended up happening was they started allocating land to like these Amish people. They started allocating land to once immigration came, like to a lot of these German Americans. That, as a matter of fact, the vast majority of the land they gave was to German Americans. Like I told y'all before, German American, is the number one ethnic group in the United States. Been that way for a long time. The German Americans weren't the ones that came over here first. Them was Anglicans. You know what I'm saying? But them German Americans got over here and they took advantage of that Homestead Act, and they didn't give a damn about trying to do no industry or nothing. They said, look, give me the land, we're gonna till it, and we just gonna live modest lives. And a lot of them continue to do that to this day. You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, I think that the Cab Farms is owned by people that got here from Germany. I believe, I could be wrong, but the Cab Farms is one of the biggest grain distributors in the United States. You know what I mean? I think the Cab got farms not only in Illinois but in other states. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but what I'm saying is through that Homestead Act, a lot of immigrants they didn't care nothing about trying to build no type of industry or they just wanted to get some land and till it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we would have did the same thing had they would have did the right thing, but yeah, I definitely get what you're saying. So yeah, at the end of the day, try to understand that a lot of the arguments that a lot of reparationists have is not based on nothing emotional. Like a lot of it's based on numbers. You know what I mean? A lot of it is based on the potential wealth that we could have had based on what will happen. We didn't ask for no civil war. We were slaves. You know what I'm saying? Y'all did it. We didn't do it. You know, but it was a handful of white folks that understood on both sides the implications when it came to potential power that black folks could have had, whether it was right, wrong, or indifferent. So I mean, that's how you got all these different factions and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? A lot. This is the thing. Like a lot of what led into Jim Crow, it really didn't have anything to do with race per se. A lot of it was the paranoia of black power. You know what I'm saying? Like Wilmington, North Carolina was a direct attack against black power, meaning that like Negroes is finna take over. You know what I mean? And then on top of that, you got a group of white folks that's helping them do it. Like it was a literal coup in Wilmington, North Carolina. It was a coup. Because after the riot, they appointed a new mayor of the town and so on, and a new congressman for that district and so on and so forth. And all these were white folks. When it was black folks that was leading.
That were legit.
Leading that industry. You know what I'm saying? So the very definition of a coup, took place. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's the type of stuff that you gotta understand when we talk about what's reparations and how reparations is going to affect the society of black folks. That's why I said I think a lot of the ills that we have in this country will be rectified through the institution of reparations, because reparations is what's going to make you whole based off of social equity. Remember, Trevor, we talked about social equity. Social equity is what defines you as an upright citizen in the country. You know what I mean? It may sound crazy to you, but I mean, it's just reality. Just like I could say somebody a nigga, that's negative social equity. You know what I mean? But I can say a person that's upright. When I say upright, I'm not just talking about morally. When I say upright, I'm meaning as far as someone that's able to hold assets. Somebody that's able to provide incentive based off whatever employment they have, right? And it's not an end all be all just a nigga with a job. It's a career. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Can you obtain all this stuff without reparation? Yeah, you can, but based off the percentage of the group itself, it's not readily obtainable. Based off of the whole group, that can only be done through policy. You know what I'm saying? Ain't like everything can just get up and say, all right, let me, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. You could do that all day, but where your wealth gonna be at? Wealth is part of social equity. Wealth is probably the most important thing when it comes to social equity.
Facts.
And that's something that we can't obtain with our current status. We just can't do it. It don't matter how hard you work. That that ain't the point. We talking about wealth over generations. You know what I mean? Like that, the wealth that you have over generations is what grants you that social equity. Like if you ain't got the wealth to do it with, no matter how hard you work, no matter what you do, you ain't gonna never be out of zero or out of that negative, like me and you talked about, Trevor. So I think at least with us being here when the inception of the country and when all the bills was passed and made, I think we should be at least granted that right. I don't care if you call me a nigga or not. That's on you. I can't stop you from calling me no. I can knock your ass out if I see you calling me a nigga. But again, I can't stop you from calling me no nigga. That ain't got nothing to do with me. But constitutionally, my rights and my governing policy got everything to do with it. So that's what we're talking about here. But yeah, other than that, man, yeah, that's pretty much all I got. You got anything you want to add, Black Son?
No, I can't wait to the next one, man. Like I said, it's documented here at the arena. And what I like about it is not only video documented, people can always come back and refer to it. You know what I'm saying? Because I know in discussions, this is going to be brought up. And so people can come here, and I love it, and boom, refer to this, and boom. You know what I'm saying? It's instant. It's like an instant library, the arena. I love it.
No doubt. Yeah. So again, part 3, Black Codes and Lost Cause. We're gonna be discussing what happened after Reconstruction, what led up to eventually the whole Jim Crow regime in the South, how we got to that point. You know what I mean? How did we go from full protection under the rights of the government to essentially not having no rights at all? We're gonna talk about that, how it happened, and how everything transpired, man. But yeah, other than that, man, if nobody want to come up, ain't nobody got any other questions, I'm gonna end it there. Because I gotta get my stuff ready for it tomorrow, and I gotta eat something. So, but yeah, no doubt, Trevor, I'll be on the lookout for your show tonight. If you still gonna do it, or if anybody else gonna do a show. Shouts out to Van Cat, shouts out to Trevor, shouts out to GTO, everybody in the chat, and most definitely shouts out to E Bizzle, Eric Bell, and yeah, man, that's all I got, man. Until we meet again, man. Again, Volume 3 should be next week, And with that, man, me and Black Son, yeah, I'm gonna say peace.
Peace, y'all. Y'all stay tuned for Trevor.
The Arena Politics.
Oh yeah, Black Son in the hizzle, oh the shizzle bizzle.